Okay. Today we're going to start Yud Zayin Amud Beis. It's the middle of the page. It's 17b. The middle. We learned last night a little bit. Okay. Thank Hashem. We're able to learn Torah every day. It's we're learning. We should have to be some English. Over here, we're learning that if master of the slave passes away, so if it's a regular Jewish slave, then the Jewish slave will continue to work for the son inheritor, but not for other inheritors. However, a Amma Hevriya, she won't even work for the son. The master passes away, she goes free. How do we know this? Amma Rabbi Pada. Rabbi Pada says, Damakra, it says in the pasuk, Vafla Masla Tasakain. This is talking about by the Hanukkah, by giving the gifts. It says you give the gifts for the regular slave. It says you give the gifts for someone that wants to stay longer, and it says also for the should do this also for the maidservant. But because it says there right before it talks about the maidservant, it talks about the one that wanted to stay longer, that his ear got pierced. It's called the nirtza. The Kiddushin Daf of the nirtza compares it to the nirtza. Just like when it comes to the nirtza, the one that had his ear pierced, he wants to stay longer than 6 years. He wants to stay up to 50 years. If the master dies, he doesn't continue to work for even the son. He doesn't work for anyone after that. Just if the master dies, he goes free. The same thing as with Amavriya. Doesn't continue to work for anyone. It's only the original master, no one else. Okay. Well, the Gemara asks, that's what you're telling me that it's teaching me. It's teaching me that you don't continue to work for an inheritor. We need that pasuk for something else. Like at the Tanya, it says in the Brisa, that you have to give it, that it's telling us that you have to give gifts. Maybe it's not telling you that you have to give gifts. Maybe it says that if a servant wants to stay longer, he says he loves his wife and his master, he wants to stay longer, so you have to pierce his ear. Maybe it means that Amevri also, if she wants to stay longer, you pierce her ear. So it says that if the slave will say it's only the slave that gets his ear pierced, the maid servant cannot continue on. We already said that's you can't do the ear piercing for the maid servant. So what did he mean when you said you should do to the maid servant? So talking about they have to give gifts. Question is, if that verse is coming to teach me that you have to give the severance pay, the gifts, and when they leave, so how do you know it means that you don't? So how you're able to extract from that you don't serve the inheritors? And should have said the servant to the maid servant. So my tasakain, what does it mean? You should do so. In other words, the extra word teaches me that you have, instead of one halacha that we learned from this, that we can learn two halachas from this. Original halacha would have been that just like the nirtza get gifts when they leave, called Hanukkah, severance pay, so to the maidservant gets gifts. Second halacha that you learn is just like the nirtza doesn't continue to work for inheritors after the master dies, so to the maidservant does not continue to work to serve inheritors after the master dies. Okay. Hanirtza someone that his ear was pierced and he was staying longer in slavery does not continue to serve the son or any other inheritors after the master dies. And the same is someone that was sold to an Ovid Kechavim, someone that's a Jewish man that's serving a non-Jewish master. We said it was probably a Ger Toshav because he was going to keep the halachas. So he also, if that Ger Toshav passes away, he doesn't continue to to serve the children of the non-Jew. We're talking about that the non-Jewish children would inherit the father through the loss of inheritance. I guess the natural loss of inheritance. So so the slave does not continue, the Jewish slave does not continue on it through those laws of inheritance, and he goes free. Nirtza, how do we know that by the Nirtza that he goes free? It says it says that the master pierces his ear with an awl, and he serves him forever. It says he serves him, but he doesn't serve the descendants, the inheritors. Okay. How do we know that someone that's sold to a non-Jew, how do we know that he doesn't continue to serve the inheritors? Chizki says in the pasuk, it says that when you want to buy the slave free, the relatives are mitzvah to buy the slave free from the non-Jewish slave owner. So they have to calculate how many years there are left to talking about the, they have to calculate how many years there are left to the yovel, because he would go free by the yovel, so they have to calculate how much he's worth. So when they're buying him free, so who do they calculate it with? With the purchaser, which means the non-Jewish slave owner. They have to calculate how many years are left. But they don't calculate it with the inheritors of the slave owner, of the purchaser, which means it's only the original owner that would have him, and not the inheritors. Well, we have a special pasuk that tells me that this slave is not doesn't go through the inheritance of a non-Jew. Amar Rava says, according to this, it's a biblical law that Ovid Kechavim Yerush Aviv, that non-Jews have inheritance. Why? From the fact that I need a special pasuk to tell me that in this case we don't say that he's inherited. From the fact that I need a pasuk to tell me that, obviously in other cases there is inheritance, and it's only over here that there's no inheritance. Over here they're going to have to, because they're living in Israel, and they're going to have to follow the law, right? So the okay. So we just learned that non-Jews inherit, a non-Jewish man that passes away, his sons inherit on a biblical level. That's what we just learned for a statement from Rava. What about Ger Esayvit Kechav? Let's say a convert. Does he inherit his father at a biblical level? His father's not Jewish. His father passes away. Does the son inherit the father on a biblical level? We say not on a biblical level, only on a rabbinic level will he inherit. Tanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. Let's say a convert and his brother. His brother is, of course, not Jewish, and his father, who is also, of course, not Jewish. So they're inheriting from their father. Now the father who's not Jewish is an idolater and he has idols. Now, if the idols would end up in the possession of the Jew, he won't be able to have any benefit from it. So to the extent that he won't be able to tell his brother, you take the idols and I'll take the other stuff, because that would be an exchange. He's exchanging an idol for other items. So he has to be able to say, before he inherits it, he has to be able to say, I'm not taking the idols at all. I just want, so he has to be able to make that arrangement before the inheritance takes place. What he can do is, he can tell his brother, the non-Jew, you take the idols, I'll take the cash. You take the wine that was poured for an idol, and I'll take the fruits. But once it's already inherited in his possession, then he's not allowed to switch it, because he would be having benefit from those forbidden possessions that he has. And if inheritance to the ger is on a biblical level, then it's automatically in his possession. He already inherits everything. And what he's doing is that exchange has already taken place. That inheritance, it's already in his possession. And when he says, you take this, I take that, he's actually exchanging things. Because if it's on a biblical level, then what that means is that he's automatically replacing the father, and all of those items belong to him partially. We have to say that really nothing belongs to him until he does it.
You guys really made the best sense.
He's taking an exchange of an idol. Rather, it's on a biblical, it's on a rabbinic level. They made a decree that this that the convert should inherit his non-Jewish father, so that he doesn't feel that he's losing out on all that great money, and he may want to go back to being a non-Jew. Taisva says, "What do you mean he can't go back to being a non-Jew?" He says, "Well, he may think that he's able to. Father could be Count Patatsky or something." And remember that story? Avram ben Avram.
Yeah.
Maybe we say, "This is I would like that all that wealth." Okay. So Tanya Namiach was also taught in the Bryce Bamed. When do we say this? Kishiyarshu. That's only by inheritance. That he can say that I'm not taking the idols. I just want the cash. I don't want the yayin nesach. I just want the fruits. But if they're partners in something, then aser. Then he can't exchange it and say, you take to this, I'll take to that, because he already owns everything. Like they own 50% of everything. That would be a problem. Let's say a non-Jew is inheriting the ger. The ger is a ger. Or one convert is inheriting another convert. There's no inheritance there at all. In other words, let's say the father converts, but his sons don't convert, so they don't inherit from him. Or let's say
biblically,
even rabbinically, they don't inherit at all. That's the concept of that the whoever acquires those possessions automatically gets it. It's like getting from hefker, because there's no relatives there.
So a ger from a ger.
Now a ger from a ger. Also, we're going to see some details about that. That means a father and a child convert, so they don't inherit each other. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah, if someone borrowed money from a convert, that his sons converted together with him. The convert dies, you don't return the money to the sons. And if he does return it, the sages aren't happy about that. Gemara says, 1 second, we have another that says they are happy about that. So what's going on? It says, like kasha. If the child was born and when the parents were not Jewish and they converted totally afterward, everything was after the birth, so then they're not really considered related, so they're not going to inherit. Kan on top of the Yudches. Here it's talking about Sheiras Yishlei B'Kedusha. The child was conceived before the conversion. So the conception from the father was when before the father was Jewish. But then they went to the mikveh. The mother went to the mikveh with the baby in utero, right? And so the child is born Jewish. So the child is a Jew, not a convert, but he's not really connected to the father. His relationship to his father was before the father was Jewish. But the child is Jewish because he was born Jewish. So because of that, we say that you don't have to give it back, but because it does look like a regular Jewish person. If someone borrowed money from someone stole from a convert, and he has to give it back. I think it says he gives to the Kohenim, right? Gezel Ager, it goes to the Kohenim. That's if he stole from a convert. This guy, he owes money. Doesn't say what he does. Maybe he doesn't have to give it back. Maybe he can just like acquire it, like the rest of his possessions he could acquire, right? Go over to the property and take whatever's there, right? What does the convert have? Books and you can take whatever's there.
But he owes,
So he owes money. So what? So he owes money. So you better take the money. They owe the convert money. So the convert, if the convert passes away, everything that he owns is hefker, is ownerless. So there's someone that has a debt to the convert. So that is also ownerless.
If you wanted to write it Sava, can you do that?
Yeah.
So this is
you would
basic.
it would have to be a special type of will that before he doesn't have any ownership over it after he passes away. It would have to go beforehand. You would have to do one of those tricks. I think, 5 minutes before it's delivered to, a living will. Rav Chia bar Raven, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Chia bar Raven says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Nevid Kechavim Yerush es Aviv Dvar Torah, a non-Jew inherits his father, an idolater inherits his father on a biblical level, the Ksiv, Ki Yerusha le'Esav Nasatias Har Seir, because I've given an inheritance to Esav, Mount Seir. B'dilmi Yisrael Mumar Shiny, Esav's not a non-Jew. Esav is just a Jew that's non-observant. Is Yisrael Mumar.
Crisis.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that means like an apostate.
It's like a yid that converted, basically.
Yeah,
that's a mishum.
What was that? They had a joke with these bunch of people that converted, Jewish people that converted to Christianity. So they're talking. They said, "How come you converted?" They said, "Well, they promised $1,000 to anyone that converts, and I had a lot of debts." They said, "Why did you convert?" He says, "Well, there was a pogrom. They said either convert or they're gonna like devastate the converted." So why did you convert? He said, "Oh, I saw the light." They said, "Oh, you shagets, you." Shagets is like a non-Jew, Anyway, okay. Okay, so but Esav was considered Jewish. He was just like a pastor, wasn't a good Jew. So maybe he has inheritance. It's different. Elamihacha, rather from here. We have another verse. Light Nasatias or Yerusha. Light wasn't Jewish. You hear this? So therefore, it says that to the children of light, he gave the place of Or as an inheritance. We see that non-Jews inherit their parents. Okay, Rav Chia bar Rav, in my time, we had another source for this.
Right, they did.
We had a source. The source was that when it comes to the slave, it says that the slave would have, if not for a special verse, the slave would have been the Jewish slave that was owned by a non-Jew. He would have been bequeathed from the father to his son. So we know that there's inheritance. Why doesn't he go back to what Rava taught us, that there's inheritance from the Jewish slave that's owned by the non-Jew? So my time Rava, why didn't he say like Rava? He says that was just what's implied from a verse. That doesn't say clearly. It doesn't say it clearly, so he doesn't accept it. Rava, my time so why didn't Rava say like Rav Chia bar Rav? So Rava's explanation would be Mishum Kvoided Avram Shiny. Maybe because Avram was so important that that Hashem made that Avram's family members should inherit, even though that wasn't a regular law for all non-Jews.
It's talking specifically about a
Yeah,
or
there was an
not
evidentiary.
necessarily like lateral possessions
There was an evidentiary that was.
for inheritance.
We're talking about an evidentiary that was purchased by a non-Jew.
And his master
And-
died.
And his master dies. It does not go to the child. It goes free. We said, but normally any other possession would go to the child. It's just the slave that goes free. He said that's a proof that normally there's inheritance by non-Jews. That was Rabba's proof. It's just specifically by the slave where you don't have inheritance. That's a proof that in other cases there is inheritance. There is, yes.
Which is because in that one exception there isn't.
Yeah. The fact that there's an exception tells me that the rest of that in all other cases there is. And that's why do you have to make that exception?
Yeah.
If there's no inheritance, so there's no inheritance. You don't have to tell me an exception that over here there's no inheritance. Why do you have to tell me here there's no inheritance? That's because there always is, yes, inheritance. Yeah. If you say that the evidivri doesn't get passed down from one non-Jew to another,
So if you give an exception, that's suggesting as if it's always like that.
Yeah. If I would say in my classroom, today there's no recess. So that would mean that normally there is. And I just said that there's not for today, right? That's...
But you wouldn't try that.
At least you can't say that at the beginning of class. Say that at the end of class.
Interesting. On the side here mentions that the title of Jew was given to one who was obligated about how beyond those the Noahide code.
Okay.
And since Abraham accepted the mitzvah of circumcision, he and his children are considered Jews with regard to the inheritance as well.
Okay. Okay.
According to who?
Which leaves that's explaining why Esav is yes a Jew, because he accepted, and therefore his children should be Jewish. Is Ishmael Jewish also? I understand, but is he considered Jewish? He repented, but that maybe is that repentance of a Jew or is that repentance of a non-Jew?
He's not born from Sarah.
Not from Sarah.
He had circumcision also, so.
I know, but the Muslims have circumcisions. That could be as a certain. It doesn't say that there are other people that are supposed to be circumcised, not even if they're not Jewish. It says,
I vote no. I vote.
You vote no?
But that's mentioned. The circumcision, filling in Shabbos of the three special covenants of Hashem.
Yeah, but we don't know that Ishmael had tefillin in Shabbos.
We don't know, but he had the circumcision.
Yeah, but
Right,
that's,
that's all.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know what Ishmael's considered. Okay, we know that Esav. It says in some places that Esav is considered Yisrael Mumer. We have in this Gemara. It's in other Gemaras also. Okay, Taner Rabbanan. Thought in the Brisa, Yesh be'ivri, Shem be'ivriya. Yesh be'ivriya, Shem be'ivri. We're going to have like these statements here that we're going to have to figure out and discuss. What does this mean? And all of this will take us through the whole page and the next page, I think. It says there are some things that apply to a Jewish man slave that do not apply to a Jewish female slave. And there's some things that are by a female slave that are not by the male slave. What applies to the male slave? Now, this is a little bit surprising because what we're saying now is that the male slave, the man, he goes out after 6 years. He goes out by the Jubilee. And he also goes out with the death of the master. But a female slave doesn't. Goes against everything that we've learned. So yeah, wait for the Gemara to explain that. But there is something by the female slave. She goes out with signs of puberty. She's also not sold twice. Once she goes free from the master, the father cannot sell her again into slavery. Is it mefaden or maften? Mefaden isa bal karchai, and we redeem
from him.
We redeem against his will. Now we're going to see in the Gemara against whose will. But we redeem against his will. Mashenkin be'ivri, but not by the manslave. So the Gemara is going to have to explain this brisa. It's cryptic. Amar Mar, Yesh be'ivri shem be'ivriya. The master taught. No, we're going back to explain the brisa. Correct. What the usual term for explaining the brisa is. Amar Mar. Yesh be'ivri shem be'ivriya. There are certain things that apply to the Jewish slave, but not to the Jewish maidservant. For a minute, but we have a contradiction. That all of those things apply to the Jewish maidservant, and in addition, she also has puberty. That will also allow her to go free. And here you're saying that she doesn't have any of the things that are like the 6 years and the yovel. What's going on? Well, Amar Rav Sheshes Kagain Shiyada. Talking about where the master married her. Remember we said that she's sold as a maidservant to this master, and the master has a mitzvah to actually take her as a wife, him or his son. So he took her as a wife, and now we say that the Jewish slave, a regular slave, goes free after 6 years after Yovel or the death of the master. But here she doesn't go free when her husband, which is her master, her husband dies, or after 6 years. She doesn't go free after 6 years. She's married. Okay. The Gemara says, Yada Pshita, Gitabai. What are you telling me? If she's a married woman, of course she doesn't go free after 6 years. Can you imagine? 6 years? That's how it works. Yeah, Gitabai, you need a divorce document. Okay.
If dies, she does.
Yeah, that's a problem. What do we do with the death? I think what it would mean is that's a very good question.
Doesn't say he's free.
You hear the question?
Doesn't say she's free or.
Hillel's asking,
Hillel and Yitzi.
yeah, and Yetzi, of course, that why doesn't she go free when the master dies? The master is her husband. That's one of the ways that a wife is free from the husband is when he dies.
Yeah.
We're saying over here the 6 years, the yovel, and the death of the master. We said that she doesn't go free with that. So why? Because she's considered married. Because the master miyayed, was designated her as a wife. So, but what about the death of the master, that she should be free? The only answer I can think of, like right now, without looking in the commentaries, is that maybe she marries the son, and the master, the father, died. She doesn't go free. Okay. Let's see. Maybe there's some notes somewhere. Okay. So now the Gemara says that's so obvious. Of course not. So we answer, I could have thought that maybe in this case, the halachas that apply to a maidservant should continue to apply, even though the master married her. Kamash Malan, it comes to tell me that no, the halachas change, and she doesn't go free with those ways, because now yud was performed. So why do you say that she goes free with puberty? What it means, if it wasn't performed, if she wasn't married, the master doesn't take her as a wife, then she goes free with signs of puberty. She can't be sold twice. Means that if the master would die, she goes free. So, what else could happen? The 6 years were up. She was sold at a very young age. Or Yovel came and she goes free. The father can't say, "Oh, good, I can sell you again." He can't do that.
If he's married to does her responsibilities change from like as a Ivri to a wife?
Yeah,
Is she
that's,
doing
I
the
think
same-
so. Yeah, I think it switches.
Is that like the same? She's not like working for.
Right.
her
I think so. I think it switches.
This time it was.
So she can't be sold twice. Michlal, but that implies we're talking here a contrast between the maid servant and the slave. So if the maid servant can't be sold twice, it sounds like the slave could yes be sold twice. But Tanya, but we have a brisa big you sell the man into slavery because he stole and he has to pay back restitution. But you know the halach is by a slave, by someone that steals, he has to pay double. So let's say he has enough money to pay the first time, but he doesn't have money for the second, for the double payment. He's supposed to pay double payment if someone says. So you don't sell him into slavery for the double payment, only for the first, only for the restitution. You sell him into slavery only because he stole, but not because he testified falsely that someone else stole, and we find out that it's Adam Zayman. And the rule by Adam Zayman is that if another two witnesses show up and say, "How do you know that this person stole? You were with us in another place. You weren't even there." So that's the rule is that these witnesses need to pay what they wanted the other person to pay. We do to them what they wanted to do unto others. So let's say we would now say, okay, now you don't have the money to pay up what you wanted to do unto others, so we should sell you into slavery. The halach is no. It's only for his own stealing. It's not for someone else's stealing. Another, it says for his stealing, he gets sold. Once he sold once, you can't sell him again. So why are you telling me that the Amavriya, that the maid servant can't be sold again? The slave can't be sold again. They both can't be sold again. Amarava like Kasha. Rava says no question. For the same theft, he can't be sold twice. In other words, he stole $1,200, and so you sell him for 6 years to pay up $600. Can't sell him for a double. We'll sell him for 12 years, 2 times 6 for that same. That we're not going to do. However,
like double jeopardy. You can't be tried for the same thing twice.
Yeah, this is not really tried. It's not perfectly exact. Yeah. However, let's say he stole $600. So we sell him into slavery for 6 years. Then he steals again $600. So we'll sell him again into slavery for 6 years. That's not a problem. But this is only by a maid. This is only by a slave, not by a maid servant. A maid servant can't be sold twice, no matter what. Amalei Abaya says, "Bignei vasei tuva mashma." The word "bignei vasei" doesn't tell me how many times he was stealing. A lot of stealings could go under the same court case. A lot of thefts, they catch him, they bring him to trial, and they convict him for all of them. That would go under the same thing. So I'm not sure what Abai is asking. Is he asking? So therefore, even if he stole twice, he still should not be. He still should not be able to go to be sold twice. He should only be sold once. There's only one sale for many stealings. Saying now is that he stole from one person and then he stole again from another person. So that he can be sold. I think what it means is that I think he's being sold to the person. Let me see what your translation says. I think he's being sold to the person that he stole from. So here the second brisa is referring to one who stole from one person. The thief cannot be sold the second time, even for several thefts. Here in the brisa is referring to thefts from two people. So if it's from different people, you can sell them to different masters. One stolen property was sold as a slave due to his theft and subsequently
So why does
steals
it
from
say
another person, it can be
bishne?
resold even 100 times.
Bishne means two people stealing. It should have said Mishne.
Yeah, it should have said mistake. That's how it.
Okay.
It's talking about two people that way.
Okay.
You call them two victims. Okay. Where is this?
Yes.
Tara
yes,
Rabbanan.
on Thursday.
Rabbanan, it was started in a brisa. Geneva, it's supposed to say Gnevasai over here. When he quoted that word Gnevasai, his staff. Look at this brisa. Look at what it says. Elef, Gnevasai Elef. He stole $1,000. However, but when he sold for 6 years, that's only a value of paying back $500. So his restitution won't be complete. So is Nimkar. Now there's a little aleph there by me. That's the It's supposed to say the Eine Chayzev Nimkar. He sold once to pay back the 500, but he cannot be sold a second time to get the rest of this restitution in to get the full 1,000. Okay. Geneva or Genevasa Chamish Meyas V'Shava Elef. He stole 500, but being sold for 6 years has a value of 1,000. So they're going to get back more than what he actually stole. In an Imka Klal, you don't sell them at all.
They didn't have inflation or deflation in those days. You were predicting that the 6 years maybe 1,000. What happens if the cost of things go down?
Things went much slower back then. Sorry, what were you saying?
Slave.
Yeah.
Cars only had
Right.
1 horsepower. And they didn't plug in.
And they,
Is that how it works in Tesla? Horsepower? Is that what do they call it?
a lot of horses under the hood.
Remember that story about when they made the train? So they laying the tracks. It took a long time. Anyway, then they said, okay, now the first train is coming. So everyone in the village went to watch it. So they hear it going, and they see how's it going? How's it moving? They said in Yiddish, "Muss sein a kleine Pferd." There must be a little horse somewhere inside that we can't see. It has to be somewhere. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer says the theft has to match exactly his value as a slave. Nimka, that's when he would be sold. Bimlav, and if it doesn't match exactly, ain't a nimka, can't sell him. It'd be very, rare that this should match. The person stole exactly what he's worth as a 6-year slave, according to Rabbi Eliezer. That's the only way it would be sold. Amar Rava. Rava says, Zachnu, Rabbi Eliezer Rabbanan. Rabbi Eliezer has a good claim against the rabbis. What's the difference if he stole 500? But his being sold is 1,000. The ein nimkar. He's not sold the second time. He's not sold even once. The nimkar kulei rachman avlechetze. He can only be sold fully, but not half. He also shouldn't be able to be sold for half the theft. In other words, if he stole 1,000 and he's only worth 500, we said, according to the Tanakama, they sell him once, but they don't sell him a second. Shouldn't be sold at all, according to that logic. Okay. Now, it says that we redeem the maidservant against his will. Now, we didn't say whose will that is. Well, Rava understood to say, against the will of the master. It means that the master doesn't want to set her free. We're going to come in with money, and we're going to set her free. Amalei Abaya, what do you mean against the will of the master? The kasvino leishtar adam. It's probably Not that you're buying her free, because that we would know that would be an actual, buying her free. It must be that you're writing a document and you force him to accept the document. You're writing a document for the master saying that we now owe you money, and you're forcing the master to take it in order to set her free. Amai, why does he have to accept it? He's holding a pearl and you're giving him clay. Clay was meant you're giving him a document. He doesn't want documents. He wants the value, not the document. So, Elam Rabbi, rather Rabbi says, it's against the will of the father. We go into the father's property. We take money from him against his will. We bring it to the master. We set the daughter free. Mishum pagam mishpacha, because it's a blemish on the family, and we want to correct that. Also, we should force the family to release the male slave. Mishum pagam mishpacha, because it's a blemish on the family. How's he going to get all the siblings going to get a shidduch when the brothers, the fathers, sold himself as a slave? It says no. If they're going to do that, right? He's going to go do it again. He's buying free. He'll go do it again. So why do we redeem the girl? The father's going to sell her again. Says Hakatani, but you said you're not allowed to sell again. Perfect. No, the Gemara says, Umani Reb Shimoni, and this is following the view of Reb Shimon. What does he say? The Tanya was starting in a brayso. A person can sell his daughter. It doesn't mean sell. It means he can give his daughter as a wife to someone, and if that husband passes away or divorces her, and the girl is still young, she's still under 12, so he can marry her off to someone else.
Should be sold again once she grows into maturity.
No, that's what science.
But if she goes free, not because of maturity, if she goes free because of yoivel, that just came a year later, she's still only 7 years old, right? The shvachis, he can be sold according to this first opinion as a slave, a maidservant, and b'shayna, and then the master dies, she goes free, he sells her again. Leisha sacher shvachis, he can sell her, he can put her into a marriage after she was a slave once. But once he marries her off, then the husband dies or divorces her, he cannot then sell her as a slave. Once she was already a wife, she can't be a slave after that. Shimon says differently. Just like a person can, according to you, can't sell her as a slave after she was once a wife. You can't sell her as a slave after she was once a slave. It will be plucked the Hani Tanai. And it's machlekes of the following Tanaim. The Tanya was starting in a brayso, the big day ba. Over there, the pasuk says, this is a very cryptic pasuk. It says that can't sell her again. The yuchal the machra bevigdeba, the mashla ba bevigdeba. He can't sell her. La'am nachri la yuchal. What is the verse? You should have it on the side of your Gemara. Yeah. La'am nachri la yuchal. So what does it mean bevigdeba? Bevigdeba can mean one of two things. It could either mean because he rejected her.
From the word bagad.
Bagad is the remember the demonstrations, Rabin Bogad. That's why I know the word. And what else? And it could also can mean a garment. Beged. So it says, "Kivan shapir shtali selah shuvin arshayla ma'chad Rabbi Akiva." Can't sell her again once the master put his cloak over her. That means once the master married her, he can't sell her again. Rabbi Akiva, that's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer and Bigdava Kivan shabagad b'shavin arshayla ma'chad. Once he rejected her, that means he sold her into. He can't sell her again. But my committee, what's the machlekes here? Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Eliezer says that you follow the Messiris, which means you just look at the letters that are there, and what does it say? It says Bagad. The letters would spell Bagad, Beis Gimel Dalet, and that would just be Bagad. Rabbi Kiva Savar Yeshem Lemikra. You have to look at the way it's pronounced. You look at the vowels. The vowel says Biged. Biged is more similar to Bevigdeba, which would mean the Beged. Right. Reb Shimon Savar Yeshem Lemikru Lemaseiris. Shimon says that you go after both, and therefore you can't sell her after she's married. You can't sell her after she was a slave. Only one time she could be sold. Let's leave it here. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.